Hey guys, Yama Killer here with another What Decks to Play for the Weekend video. I want to start off the video by asking, if you like my content, make sure to like and subscribe. I gotta chill out every once in a while, and the beginning of a video is always a great way to do it. Another prerequisite to the video, I want to say that some of these formats I have not really been playing much recently, and those formats being Standard and Vintage, and I just want to say that at the outset to not put any expectations or any high value on my opinions of those formats. But I have been talking to people in regards to those formats, so I do have a little bit to say about them. So let us start off the video with Standard as per usual. These showcases are this weekend. There's Standard, Pioneer, Modern, Legacy, Vintage. The first one's going to come up 6 a.m. PST Standard. It's one that I'm personally going to skip because I don't have a luxury of infinite qualifier points as I've been using them recently for super qualifiers along with other events. But if I were to play the event, I would play Teamer Adventures. I've talked to people like Tangrams, Ghoul Dukat. They both have done very well with this deck, and that makes me believe that it is a deck to be playing. And they said Lucky Clover and Edgewall Innkeeper are just incredibly good cards right now. Very good value engines and hard to disrupt early on. And if you can get a good value engine in, you can just do a lot of very busted stuff. Getting a lot of mana with Beanstalk Giant, getting a lot of value with Escape to the Wilds, and getting double Fae of Wishes to be able to use your sideboard to its fullest extent. Getting yourself a 9 to 10 card Wish sideboard depending on how you want to build it. How we're going to play the format, this is what I would play. I'm told that you need a good chunk of practice for it, but I like to go in blind and, raw dog my way to victory. But luckily, I do not have to worry about this because I'm not playing Standard. But if you do have to worry about it, I suggest picking up Teamer Adventures as soon as you can and getting some leagues in with it for preparation. Now, let us move on to Pioneer. There's a couple decks I'm looking at. First of all, I want to look at this Yorion Fires deck that I played this week. I went 4-1 in a prelim with this build. I think it is fairly good. I think the Luca package wasn't too great in this deck list. I thought just stealing one player's permanent is usually just like a land and not anything too important. And I didn't really like that, so I thought, what's better than like a 5-drop Planeswalker that basically steals a land some amount of the time? Let's just throw in some more 5-drops, Elspeth Conquers Death, and some Dream Trawlers. I thought Dream Trawler would be fine in the aggro matchups as well as the control matchups. Mid-range, just needed to get there. I threw in some extra Shark Typhoons as well. Kind of just bolstered up the top end as well as like getting you to your land drops and other such things with the Shark Typhoon card. Now there are some things that I'm waffling on. What exactly is the 2-drop slots? I've messed around with some Birth of Meletus, with the Chandra Baffling End. Is getting the Trials necessary? Now without all, unless there's like all of the combo decks like Inverter and Breach around. So there's definitely some tinkering to be done, but I think this shell is very, very powerful. I think it is a good deck to play in some way. Now another deck that I've been looking at, Winota. Personally, I have not done very well. I played a prelim with it. I went 1-3. I wasn't to my fullest focus during it, as I was multi-queuing with the Yorion Fires deck and putting most of my focus there. But when I played the Yorion Fires deck, one of the few matchups that I did lose, both in leagues and in the prelim, was Winota. Very, very powerful. Turn 1 Elf, turn 2 Legion War Boss or Goblin Rabblemaster, depending on how you build the deck. Turn 3 Winota, sometimes you just win the game on the spot from there. It has a very powerful secondary game plan with just some random beatdowns like Garrick's Harbinger, Voice of Resurgence, Legion War Boss, just, doing some things, and you can dedicate your sideboard either to be more towards defending the combo and something like Selfless Spirit, Knight of Autumn to be a Grafdigger's Cage type effect, or you can do a sideboard where you take cards like Chandra Torch of Defiance, Clothis, Bone Crusher Giant, side out most of the combo pieces, and become just kind of a mopey mid-range deck. When your opponent has somewhere between like 2 to 5 dead cards and Grafdigger's Cage type effects, you're starting to look a little bit better in those matchups as well. So I think this is a deck, however you build it with a transformational sideboard or just a more combo-centric sideboard, I think it's another deck that is great to play. Now finally, I'd like to talk about Sultide Delirium in some form. Uro, as it's been good in Standard, as it's been good in Pioneer, Modern, Legacy, and sometimes even Vintage. If you're playing Uro, your deck can't be that bad. And this, I think, is one of the best Uro decks along with 5-color Niv Mizzet. But personally, I would play Sultide Delirium because it is a lot easier to play because of the fact that you don't have to deal with your 5-color mana base and figure out how to actually tap your lands correctly. If you want to play Uro in mid-range, I'd go down this path. If you want to play big spells, so go for some Yorion Fires. You want to aggro and cheese some people out? Go for Winota. So that's what I think about Pioneer, and those are the 3 decks that I would be thinking about playing. Now, on to Modern. Good old trusty Eldrazi Tron. Gonna be good right now. I think Chalice of the Void is a particularly powerful card. Prowess on the uptick. Burn on the uptick. Ad Nauseam on the uptick. Just a bunch of decks that are seeing Chalice of the Void being good against, are seeing a lot more play, and I love it when those things are seeing more play, because I get a Chalice 1, and they get to lose the game. And, you know, you've got the backup of just having a reasonable mid-rangey creature plan along with Karn the Great Creator as a good value plan. Decks like Jund have a difficult time with Reality Smasher and Karn the Great Creator, along with other random mopey mid-range decks. You're still going to be a slight dog to decks like Blue-White Stoneblade, Teamer Reclamation, but you still have good answers in Chalice on 1 for Path, into just playing some creatures, Thought-Knot your Reality Smasher. You can get an early Ugin the Ineffable down, and uncontested, it's going to be really good for you. Modern right now, I think, is the format of old, kind of. Like, you have 10, 15, 20 decks that I think are all on people's minds. They're like, okay, this is a deck that could do really well this weekend. This is a deck that has playability. It's good against 5 to 10 of the decks, medium against 5 of the decks, and kind of bad against 5 of the decks. Now you got to decide, what decks do you think people are going to be playing? You think Chalice on 1 is going to be good this weekend? Eldrazi Tron is your deck to go to. Now, another deck that I've been working on, I haven't actually tested out 100%. I made a new, not necessarily innovation, I saw this from someone else, but a thought for this deck is the green-red deck, and instead of 4 Glorybringers, 4 Elder Gargaroth. Here's my reasoning for that. 1, Prowess and Burn decks, Elder Gargaroth, much better than Glorybringer. If it gets to connect at least once, you're probably winning the game. You got to gain some life, very hard for them to attack into. It's a pretty beefy threat. Against decks like Jund and such, not playing that many Assassin's Trophies and Terminate effects, if it gets to stay alive for 1 turn, it's going to be taking over the game very quickly. Eldrazi Tron, pretty damn hard to beat a 6/6. Dismember doesn't kill it, Reality Smasher doesn't kill it, and even if they have like some combo of things to be able to beat it in combat, you're getting at least 1 trigger out of it. So I think it's very good against the mid-range and aggro decks. Now, one thing, Elder Gargaroth, much worse against decks like Blue-White Stoneblade. Path to Exile, Teferi Time Raveler, both horrendous things for Elder Gargaroth. But I think in my expected metagame, I'm not going to be playing against that many ways to just deal with Elder Gargaroth right off the bat. Against something like Teamer, they don't have really any ways besides exactly Jace to beat your Elder Gargaroth. And if you just get to attack with it at least once, you're getting a good chunk of value, and it's a very difficult threat for a lot of decks to beat. Now, why else play this deck? I think Utopia Sprawl into Blood Moon, great against Eldrazi Tron. Your deck is somewhat reasonable against the Prowess/Burn decks because of Klothys and now Elder Gargaroth, and you have some sideboard plans versus it. Against Control, you've got Bloodbraid Elf, Seasoned Pyromancer, and the such. This deck still has a problem where, you know, you don't have Arbor Elf or Utopia Sprawl in your opening hand. You're kind of like being a dog against a lot of decks. But you have a lot of good mid-rangey plans as well as some cheese effects with Blood Moon, and I think it's a very reasonable deck to play. Now, finally, another aggro deck that I think is pretty reasonable. Is it Blitz, or you could play Mono Red? Is it Red-Black? Lots of different prowess builds, but some sort of prowess, 20 plus 1-drops, you know, play some Stormwing Entities, some Sprite Dragons, you know, kill your opponent dead pretty quickly, have some turn 3 kills, have some pretty consistent turn 4 kills. A lot of very just like powerful killing effects, and you have some lasting staying power with Light Up the Stage and Storming Entity to filter your draws along with Bedlam Reveler. I think all of these decks are pretty reasonable, and I think many other decks, you know, some Blue-White Stoneblade, Teamer Reclamation, Neobrand, Ad Nauseam, and many other decks that I think are all very playable right now. Bottom's kind of the Wild Wild West. You show up with your gun and hope your gun's doing well against their gun or whatever their defenses bring up. So those are my thoughts on Modern, and now let's move into Legacy. Legacy, from what I am being told, still Teamer Delver number 1. I've actually been playing Legacy the past couple weeks for the challenges and a little bit of leagues. I've actually top 8'd, not with Teamer Delver, but yet with Monobloom Karn Echoes. I've top 8'd, gotten 9th place as well in these challenges. I think this deck is also very good. Chalice of the Void, very good. I think there's a couple different ways you can play Legacy right now. One is Dark Ritual or some sort of combo. Another one is Chalice of the Void. Another one is Delver of Secrets. But there's a couple ways that you can decide how to build your deck. I'm more of a Chalice player because I don't have to think about the format and exactly how to use my dazes and my force of wills to how to interact with my opponent, I'm just going to play my chalice, and you can't play your spells anymore, hopefully. And I get to play some bigger threats. Usually, I'm more of a mono-red prison type guy, but this deck felt pretty good. As an Emery can get me a lot of good value. Narset is good against the blue decks. Charlie Bird Creator cheeses some people out with Mycosynth Lattice. Just has a lot of cheese elements, which I love to play in Legacy. I'm usually a cheesy guy in Legacy. I haven't played much Delver recently. One thing I would like to say is I still think, even though I have done well with this deck, I think Temur Delver is the deck to beat. And if your deck does not have a good Temur Delver matchup, I would be suspect to play it in the event. I've thought about playing a deck like Blue Red Delver, which I think could be good against Temur Delver. You get to have some basics, you get to have more Wastelands and such. You just got to be more consistent Dreadhorde Arcanist deck as well. But I don't have the time to practice that. So my deck of choice is going to be Mono Blue Karn Echoes, because I've played this deck to some success. Though if I was going new into the format and haven't played it for a bit, I would still try to pick up Temur Delver, play it for a day or two, and get into the showcase with that. I think it is the best deck. Finally, let us move on to Vintage. Vintage, another format I haven't been playing much over the past couple weeks. I've been told by someone recently who 5-0'd a league and been playing a good chunk of leagues as well as the challenges and done well, is some sort of Underworld Breach deck is very good because the top deck in the format right now is actually Doomsday of all decks. Very, very hard deck to play, I think. I've not actually played it personally. Doomsday piles can get complicated, but I've been told this deck is one, very good against the Bazaar decks, which are omnipotent right now in the format, or omnipresent, I guess is the word to use. And you have a pretty reasonable matchup against Xerox, because they're not playing very many Flusterstorms, more Pyroblasts, and it's hard for them to interact with the Doomsday correctly. And it's mainly just having trouble with other combo-based decks like Storm, or potentially a deck like Grixis Underworld Breach, which gets to play all the same ways to beat the Doomsday deck. You gotta play some Pyroblast, good against Lost Oracle, Force of Wills. You can even play Flusterstorms. You basically get to play a combo deck, but you're also playing a control combo. So you get to deal with their combo, and then once you've tapped them out or dealt with their combo, you can then set up with your Underworld Breach. So my thought is I'm probably going to go back to Underworld Breach, a deck I haven't played in a week or two. I've done very well with the deck, and I think it's very good. It's just a little bit difficult to play as well. But if I wanted to take the easy road, as many people do who have not played the format, Shops is always great. With Shops, make sure you mulligan to Mishra's Workshop or 2 to 3 mana worth of spells, or worth of mana, in either Ancient Tomb plus a Moxen, Mishra's Workshop, something along those lines. Get yourself a Sphere, a Trinisphere, something down that you know will interact well with your opponent, and then kill them down with either some Phyrexian Invokers, some Traxos, Foundry Inspector, however you need to do it. But that's my thoughts about Vintage, and I hope it's helpful for you as well. Those are my thoughts about the 5 main formats for the showcases this weekend. I guess a little thought on Pauper. You know, I'm going to play Affinity again. I'm just playing the same deck list. I just like top 8/top 16 every week. I'm having fun with it. I think the deck's fine. Not insane, not bad. I think just a pretty fine deck, and I haven't found my way to mulligan with it and been having fun with it because of the combo aspect of Atog and Fling. But I'd like to wrap up. Those are my thoughts on all the formats. Let me tell you, if you have any different thoughts, make sure you tell them in the description below. Maybe tweet them at me on Twitter. You'll see my Twitch and my Twitter in the description below. See me playing these formats this weekend. See me hopefully top 8ing something and qualifying for a showcase event. If you guys like them, you know, make sure to like and subscribe. Do all the good things, chilling out a little bit for my channel here. My channel's in Twitch and Twitter. And thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it a lot, and I will see you guys on the next video, whether it be gameplay or another what deck to play this week. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.